Yo, what is going on, guys? Jeff back here with another video update on Project Zailas Excelsior wide body kit. This one's going to be a little bit different than what I've been uploading for the past few videos in that we're working on the new hood for the kit, but I'm actually going to be showing you guys the progress. So it's not done yet. I'm actually going to be uploading at least 2 or 3, I imagine, videos of the process of turning this hood from a Sabon top secret style hood, carbon fiber hood, into the brand new hood that we are designing for Excelsior. Now, I've already gotten started on it. The first part I already did before I decided to document it, but I'll explain exactly what I did, and I hope you guys enjoy being able to see the process as it goes along, give you a little bit of a better idea of how exactly I make this stuff, because I'm going to use a lot of the same techniques making this new hood as I have with the rest of the pieces of the kit. So let's get started. Alright, so here we are looking at the hood in its current condition. I've already made the cut. Like I said, that was the first thing to be done on this hood. Again, it started as a Sabon top secret style hood. These are fairly common for the Z33. It's one of the best hood offerings on the market if you ask me, but this kit definitely needed something a little bit more spicy than this, but it was a great base to start with to make the Excelsior hood. So first let's talk about what the design overall goal is for the design of the new hood. There's a couple of things that are going to be very specific in this design. First is obviously going to be the ducting right there on the top. Now, those of you guys know, Z33 guys know that the 06 plus 2006, 7, 8, and 9 Z33s, they have a little bit of a difference in the hood compared to the earlier Zenki models, in that this center section is raised up, and that's serves two purposes. It's firstly a kind of a callback to the original S30Z hood, and it had kind of that similar kind of a wedge lifted shape in the center on those old 240Zs, so they kind of captured that look again on the Koki hood for the Z33. And the other purpose was, of course, to create clearance for the updated engine in the HR models. So you guys know that the 06 and lower, so 2003 to 2006 Z33s came with the VQ35DE, and from then on, from the 07s, 08s, and 09s, they switched over to the HR, so dual throttle body, etc., etc. And the engine was just slightly a different shape, which necessitated that they add this little hump section in the center. But that actually works great in our favor for this new hood, because I was actually able to cut this, and I wanted to drop this to create a nice vent section right here. Now, of course, because the hump was necessary for the new engine dimensions, I'm not going to get a lot of clearance here. It's just a little bit, but I didn't want a lot to begin with. So let me move over to this side so you see kind of what we're working with here. The hood is fully closed at this point, so this is actually, it's actually more than I thought I was going to get out of it. Sorry about the lighting here, but I actually thought I was only going to get about an inch before it actually made contact with the engine, but it's actually looking like I'm going to get more like an inch and a half, maybe even an inch and 3/4, which is just going to be beautiful. I don't want it to be sitting actually on the engine whenever I close the hood, so I'm actually going to create a little foam spacer as I'm doing my fiberglass work, just to put, I don't know, maybe like a millimeter of width between where the hood actually rests and the engine, because I don't want it actually sitting on the engine itself. But even with that little spacer that I'm going to put in there, that's a great amount of venting right there, and it actually works perfectly with the vents that are already built into the hood as well, because those are not super deep as they are. So I think it's just a perfect match if you look at it from that angle there. So that was definitely the major thing that needed to be done to the hood. First and foremost is I needed to make sure I got that cut just right, and in order to get that cut just right, I measured it 2, 3, maybe 4 times, and it was a bit of a pain, but I finally got it looking pretty good, pretty even on both sides. And really the best way that I was able to achieve this nice cut is I waited until it was evening and it was a little dark out, and I had my garage lighting here. It actually worked really well in my favor, because the garage light comes right down on top of the hood, and I was actually able to see the reflection where the hump section was, and the light hitting the hump perfectly, and it actually outlined beautifully exactly where the line is. With the top secret style hoods, it's very subtle. There's no sharp lines, so I made sure to make doubly sure that it was the proper line for it and I wasn't getting any blurring or anything like that. So I took my time with it and I watched where the light was hitting, and I actually just took a Sharpie marker and followed the light, and it turned out perfect. So I think it's really, really nice, especially after I add my little flaring and stuff that I'm going to do along the edges. It's really going to be mint. So besides the center section and the new venting that we're going to add in the main duct there, some other things that we're going to end up doing to this hood is we're going to be adding flaring all along the side vents here. So this is actually going to be built up. So this is going to be a more of a flared up kind of a deal on the side there and on the side of the vents as well. So it's really going to be a little higher here, and then it's going to dip in. There's going to be like a little dip, and then it's going to be a little higher here all the way back. And then we're going to also create a nice little bit of flaring on this side as well that's actually going to follow all the way down to this portion of the front of the hood. And the reason for that is because I actually built, if we take a look at my front bumper, I actually built some little raised areas right here that actually emboss up. So they're actually embossed up, that will flow, and that's where that extra little bit of flaring is going to connect directly from the front bumper into the hood. Okay, so we're looking at this side here. That little hump right there on the front bumper is going to come up and it's going to extend all the way up right into the side flaring of the side vents right there. We're also going to do a little bit of a buildup of material right here. So we're going to have a little bit of a ramp leading up to the front of the vents, and then on this side also same deal as I was just explaining on the other side there. So it will look, if you can kind of see my finger in the dust there, it will come up like this, go along the side, and then there will be a piece like that, and then we're going to build up this center section a little bit as well, and then it's going to come across and then down and up. And it may seem like that's going to be a little messy, but trust me, I'm usually able to get things straightened out and look pretty good in the end, so don't worry. And one of the very good things about this is a carbon fiber hood. It's a composite. Composite pieces are great because you can change them, modify them as much as you want. It's easy to cut, it's easy to add new fiberglass, add new material to it, whatever you want to do. Now I could just use body filler to create all my new designs and all that, but I don't like using body filler if I don't have to. I much prefer using actual fiberglass because it's more stronger. You can add thickness easier. It just is a better turnout in my opinion, as opposed to laying a ton of body filler, which is heavier than fiberglass, and it breaks a lot easier than fiberglass. So we're going to be doing mostly fiberglass on this for our primary construction of all the details, and then at the end we are of course going to go over with body filler and smooth any imperfections out and fill any pinholes or anything like that that appear in the finished design. So we're really only going to be using body filler for finishing and final shaping, doing all that. I wanted to point out here that as I was explaining the details that we're going to be putting around the vents, it's going to be very similar to this. I thought to just show you this because I did the same exact thing on the venting for the fenders. You can see how I just added this little raised area. It's not just flat. So if you look at it from different angles, it's actually raised up. You see that? So that's exactly what I'm going to be doing here. Right now it's just flat. There's no raised areas or anything like that. We're going to be adding just a little bit of a raised detail, and it's going to look just like that. That's a better way to look at it, where you can actually see how it comes up on the sides and just frames the venting just perfectly. So we're going to be doing that same deal, matching the side vents, and then also in these sections as well. So that is the plan for the design of the hood. That is what I have on the docket to modify this thing. By the time I'm done with it, it shouldn't look anything like this, or at least you should definitely not be able to tell that it was at one time a top secret style hood. That's the thing, whenever I use a donor part or I build on top of something that already exists, my standard is kind of set at it. By the time it's done, you shouldn't be able to tell that it was once that previous thing, or at least it should be very hard. You'd have to look at it, for a long time to come to the conclusion that, oh yeah, that was a top secret style hood. And so that's kind of my goal with this, is I want to modify it enough so that you really can't tell that it was once this hood. So what is our next step? Okay, so from here, we've made the cut. What I'm going to need to do now is I'm going to work primarily on this hump section for right now. I'm not going to worry about any of the other detailing stuff right now. That's all going to come later. The first thing we want to do is get this whole section right here, this new center vent, dialed in. So the first thing I need to do is I need to build walls all along the side section. This bottom section here is obviously going to be open. I'm probably going to cut something like that, cut this section so that this whole area here is much more open. I might not cut quite that much, but this is more than likely going to be cut quite a bit here so that this is more of an open space. But I'm going to be building the walls along the sides, and they'll come up to right about here, and then they will kind of close in right there on both sides. So that's what I'm going to be working on doing first. And of course we're going to be using fiberglass, and I need to fill in this section so I can fiberglass over it. And in order to apply fiberglass to these areas, it will of course need to be sanded down. There's no way I can put fiberglass on a painted surface. This hood is currently painted right now, so I'll need to sand all of the areas where I intend on applying fiberglass, and that'll be the first thing that I'm going to be doing in preparation of filling and creating the walls here on the sides. Now you may be wondering what these spacers are doing up there on the hood, and those are serving a purpose in that with the cutting here of the hood, if I take the spacers off here, you will see that it's not meant to be cut there, so you get that little raise where it kind of pops up there in the back section there. And these spacers, as I lay them there, it's going to close it so that it's even on both sides. I don't want it crooked when I fiberglass. I don't want it like this or like that or anything. I want it perfectly square as it's coming down nice and clean. So I use the weights here, whatever I have on hand. In this case it's wheel spacers, to make sure that on both sides it's clamped down proportionately so that I get a nice even smooth surface. And I think they're doing their job beautifully. As I kind of lean down here, and you can see as this, I can push this down just a little bit. That's looking pretty straight. So, and if I take this off, you can see, I'm going to actually point the camera here, you can see how that makes a big difference. As I take it off and put it back on, you can see how it shifts. Just that little bit of a shift right there can make a huge difference. If I didn't have the weight there and there was even just that one little millimeter shift in the center section, then it would be crooked. And I don't know about you guys, but that kind of stuff drives me absolutely crazy. Like, I'm such a perfectionist. If it's off like just a tiny little bit, and it's like at a car show and I'm looking at it, and even if nobody else would ever be able to tell that something like that was happening, in the back of my mind, I know it's there, and it drives me freaking nuts. So I go like way overboard on making sure everything is like absolutely perfect and straight and all that. But that's just me. So that's what the wheel spacers are for. They're likely going to be sitting there as I'm doing the fiberglass work and creating the walls on the side. Alright, so here we are about an hour later. I've got everything, every area of the hood that is going to see contact with fiberglass enhancement sanded down. We had to sand down through, of course, the paint and the primer. You want to make sure you get all the way down to the composite itself, in this case carbon fiber. So you may not be able to see it right now, but if I wet this down, you'd actually see the carbon right in all of these areas that I have sanded down. I went ahead and made sure to sand down all of this on the inside of the hump section too, because we are of course going to be building that wall, and it's going to be connected from this bottom piece up to here. So we are now ready to go ahead and start constructing our walls for the center vent. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use my tried and true, and that's clay, to create a wall so that I can fiberglass over it. It's quick, it's easy, it's going to allow me to just fill that gap, throw some fiberglass over the top of it, and then I will actually lift the hood up and pull the clay out from the bottom side. That'll make it really quick and easy. There's other ways that you could do it. You could use tape if you wanted to do that. You could like tape it from the inside and create a wall. You could use foam. Pretty much anything that you can think of to create a temporary wall there where you can fiberglass those sides in, and that'll do the trick. But in my case, I'm going to go ahead and use the clay. I'm just so used to it. I've used it for literally every other piece on this kit in one way or another, and it's just worked for me. So I'm going to go ahead and apply the clay right now. All right, quick change of plans. Before I start doing the clay work, I actually decided that I'm going to go ahead and cut that front piece out of the hump section right here. I think that's better, so that when I do go ahead and start building up my wall, I'll know exactly how far to build it up on both sides. And the other reason why it's good to do that first is because then I'll be able to actually put my little spacer underneath exactly how far back it goes, and make sure that this thing is sitting perfectly straight. So I'm not going to get ahead of myself with the clay just yet. Let me cut this, and then I will then go in and do the walls. All right, so check this out. I want to show you guys something pretty cool. This is how I usually get symmetry. If I have something like this where I need a curve to be equal on both sides, I've used this method for years. Like ever since I built my first body kit, I was using this method. And all you need to do this is like clear packing tape and a Sharpie marker, and that's it. So what you're going to do is you find a center line. If you need two pieces in this example, find a center line. So I've got the center line of the hood, and then you're going to lay down 3 or 4, 4 is better, 4 or more pieces of packing tape so it's really strong. The more you layer up, it'll actually start to become more rigid, so the more rigid it is, the better. So you're going to lay it down and then trace the one side of what you need at the angle, or whatever you need. In this case, that's what I've decided on right there. That's how much I'm going to cut that back. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to peel this whole thing off, and there's 4 or 5 layers of tape here. I'm going to peel the whole thing off, and then I'm going to cut the tape along the Sharpie line that I made, the shape of it. I'm going to cut all the excess off, and then I'm going to actually just flip it over. And the back side obviously is going to be sticky, but don't worry about it. You can rub a little dust on it or whatever. It'll still have the shape because you cut it out. So you can rub a little dust or whatever to get rid of the tackiness on it. It doesn't really bother me. I just leave it. And I just flip it over and then lay it up against that center line right there. That's going to be your point of similarity between the two. You're going to lay it over, and it will be extremely close, if not exact. There's always usually a little bit of a difference because of the thickness of the Sharpie line and all that, and cutting it, sometimes it's not exactly perfect, but it's going to be so perfect that, or perfect enough that nobody's ever going to be able to tell. So I'm going to pull this off, and then I'll cut it, and then I'll show you exactly how it works. All right, so I got my my template cut out. That was the piece that was just right there. I just cut it out, and like I said, just trim off the edges of it, and now I have this piece. And what I'm going to do is just flip it over, and I'm going to find that place right there. Like I said, it's tacky on this side, but it doesn't bother me too much. Just match that line up right there, and then get it as close as you can to looking very similar. And there you go. There's your line. As long as it's right there up against that center line where it was when you first made it, that's going to create a perfect or near perfect match for your curve. So once you have it exactly in place, I went ahead and took a couple of little pieces of tape and fastened it down just so it wouldn't move when I take my Sharpie marker. And I actually take that line and I just follow the tape. Just like that. So after I've made my line on the opposite side, I laid it back in the perfect position on the first position there, and I made my line on that side, and there you go. You have perfect or near perfect symmetry for your curve on both sides. So now I'll just go ahead and make that cut. Alright, and just like that, the cut has been made. Looks pretty darn good, if I do say so myself. I think that's a perfect amount of gap in there. Not too little, not too much. And I'll be able to actually put, if I want, a little bit of mesh now on this front section from the top here down to the bottom if I want. And I can also now perfectly position, put my spacer under there. I can actually see what I'm working with under there. This is coming down just on top of the coolant cap and the oil stick. So I'm going to put a little spacer because I don't want that resting on those pieces right there. So I'm actually going to put a little bit of this foam temporarily. It's not going to be there on the finished product, but what this is going to do temporarily, I'm going to glue some of this to the bottom. It's not going to be this thick. I'm going to actually sand it down so it's, maybe you can see how there's 3 pieces there. I'm going to maybe just do 1 piece of this and then put that underneath. and that's about how much space that's going to give me. And then I'll do my fiberglass work, and it will be stuck in place, and then I can remove the foam at that point. Okay, so nice cut we got there. I also made myself a fancy looking boomerang in the process, so that's always cool too. So let's move on. At this point, we're going to go ahead and do the clay work on the sides after I put my spacer in. Alright, I've got my foam spacer in place there, so it's not sitting directly on the oil stick and the coolant cap. So I went ahead and replaced the weights in the back so that the hump is sitting even. And I went ahead and put this center block here just so that it's sitting as far down as it can, so pressure is being applied on the front of it. And so now we are officially ready finally to start using the clay. I made one last check by putting my finger here. I actually just used my finger, and I measured it, and it goes up to just about the first crease in my finger right there, and I made sure that that's exactly the same on both sides there, just to make sure that it was even on both sides and there was the same amount of gap, especially in toward the front. As it gets in toward the back, it's not going to matter quite as much once everything's getting refined and all that, but where it's the deepest, you want to make sure it's as even as possible. So I just use my fingers and make sure it's even, and it is. It's coming up to my crease there on both sides, so now we're ready to start laying up our clay. Alright guys, so another good couple of hours later. I've lost all my light now, so I'm going to be wrapping it up after this, but I have finished up my my clay work. As you can see, I just put the clay right in the gap there, and then up at this point I created a nice diagonal section right there going from the lower piece up to the upper piece. That way I can put mesh in here. Did that on both sides, obviously. And yeah, so there it is. I made sure to get the angle correct on both sides as closely as humanly possible. If you back up from here, you can see it's pretty darn spot on. So this is going to work beautifully for my fiberglassing, which I'll be doing tomorrow. Probably tomorrow morning while it's still cool. We're in triple-digit heat right now in the Sacramento area, so definitely any fiberglass work has to be done in cooler weather. So I'm going to try and get up real early tomorrow morning and apply my fiberglass. I'll of course turn the camera back on and show you guys all that. But we're essentially just going to be fiberglassing this wall section from this the bottom hump section up to the top section right there, and sealing that up. And then that's also going to have the effect of locking that in place. So this is all going to be locked in place. It's not going to move around anymore. I'll be able to remove the weights and it will be stuck in place. And then once that's solid, I'll be able to open the hood, go up underneath and do some reinforcement work, little fiberglass work to just make it a little bit stronger underneath, because when I did cut the hood, obviously it you know, it compromised the hood quite a bit with regards to its durability, so it will need to be reinforced again underneath once this is set. And then after that's done, we'll move on to doing some of our detailing on the outer side. Alright, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Oh man, I'm looking rough. I've been out here standing in front of this car, at the hood of this car, for about the last 5 hours. Standing, mind you, no breaks. Just a couple of water breaks here and there, but man, I'm tired. Anyways, I do hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions at all about what was in this video or about the car, anything else I've done with the car, feel free to ask. I love conversing with you guys. It's a pleasure, truly. I'm not a know-it-all by any means, but if you guys are interested in this car or in how to do this kind of stuff, making your own parts, I love to converse about it and just share what I know. Everything that I do, I am self-taught. I never learned from anybody else. I just learned from trial and error mostly. But I've done all right. I can honestly say I've done all right. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. And if you're not subscribed, you might consider subscribing if you like this car or if you like this kind of work, because there's going to be a lot more coming. I am going to be kicking up my YouTube game here, so going to be a lot more on this channel to come. So you might subscribe, might do you good, and it would help me out as well. I appreciate it. Thank you guys. I will catch you in the next one. God bless.